this is a little tangent. Um, I'm going to do the prologue to the tangent by saying that Taoists are seeking to be part of a larger ecology. There are many different kinds of organism in an ecology, and the ecology would cease to function if every organism turned into honeybees. If every plant and animal was just turned into a honeybee, the whole ecology collapses. So Taoists don't try to get everyone to agree. We aren't just tolerating differences, we appreciate difference because that's how you get an ecology. And it's not just diversity for diversity's sake, it's everyone serving different roles and fulfilling different needs and perspectives that are valuable to the totality. So I'm not hating on any group for being themselves. Nature's going to work it out. Nature's going to decide, not me. We'll figure it out. We'll see what happens. But there's this conversation that I wanted to go into that happens every single time that I, as a Taoist, start talking Taoism and I meet a Buddhist. This is very consistent. And this isn't just something with me talking to Buddhists. This has happened with Taoists and Buddhists for about 12 centuries. I'm talking to a Buddhist about philosophy, explaining Taoism, and they tell me, oh, Buddhism is basically the same. No, it's not. It's really fundamentally the opposite of Taoism. And then they spend the whole conversation trying to convince me that I should become Buddhist because Buddhism and Taoism are basically the same. And I try saying to them, well, if you claim that they're the same, then why does it matter? Why should I become Buddhist if they're the same? No answer. So Buddhists have this idea that in their frame of mind, the ultimate end goal is the elimination of all consciousness in existence. We all go to nirvana. The bodhisattva concept is that you are the Bodhi tree helping others attain nirvana. So because there's no separation between any beings, all consciousness is united. So none of us can actually get to nirvana unless we all do. So Buddhists really want Taoists to become Buddhists so that they can get to nirvana. If I don't want to go to nirvana, then he can't go to nirvana because we're all the same consciousness. So he's really got to get me to be a Buddhist so that I go to nirvana with him, because otherwise he can't. And so the Buddhists try to convince the Taoists to become Buddhists. And this has been going on since the Tibetan Buddhists arrived in China. And it must have been a really funny conversation. So I'm going to try and emulate that conversation from 12 centuries ago. A Taoist is sitting outside enjoying the sunshine because it's sunny. It's a nice day. I'm going to enjoy the sunshine. And he's working on something because that's what Taoists want to do. We want to be productive. We want to be a keystone species within the ecology. We want to support the whole system by being a keystone species. So Taoists were alchemists and engineers, building defensive fortifications for cities. We do practical work that helps real people, and we're focused on that. And the Buddhist comes along in his glowing saffron robes and his shaved head, because that makes a difference. And he sees the Taoist working in the yard and says, "Oh, hi, I'm from Tibet." And the Taoist is like, "Oh, welcome. What's up?" And the Buddha says, "I want to convince you to be Buddhist. That's the whole thing I do, is just walk around trying to convince people to be Buddhist." Why? Well, because we're not separated, so we're all really the same. And Taoist says, yeah, that's true. We aren't actually separated. We're all interdependent. A Taoist views all of life as one contiguous being. And Buddhist says, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's why we all have to seek nirvana together, or else none of us can get there. The Taoist says, what's nirvana? And Buddhist says, it's the end of consciousness. End of all life. You cease to exist in reality. Because reality is an illusion. Reality is not an illusion. Reality is real. No, no, you just think it's real. Okay, well, regardless of whether I think it's real or not, I'm actually experiencing it, and so I should treat it as real. You know, if it is just a simulation, I'm still in it. Thinking it's a simulation didn't get me out of it. So I should presume that what I need to do here is based upon what I see is real. Taoists aren't materialists. We happily accept the subjectivity as something that you cannot objectively measure or display to someone, but it is intrinsic and evident. Subjectivity, consciousness, qualia, we know those exist. We're not strict materialists like B.F. Skinner, but reality is tautologically real. And if you tell me it's an illusion, then all you're telling me is that the real is something I don't experience, which means it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. If there's some real that I'm not experiencing, well, then it doesn't matter because I'm not experiencing it. I'm not there. So how real can it be? And the Buddha says, no, 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 you have to believe my words that there's some other real that's actually real and this one's fake. And the Tao says to the Buddhist, well, now you're telling me to believe your illusion. I'm just supposed to take your word for it. And so the Taoist starts asking the Buddhist, so you want to get rid of all life? Yeah. Yeah, we want to get rid of all life, all consciousness. Why? Well, because life contains suffering. Taoist says, yeah, every single life has at least some suffering in it. And most of that suffering is self-inflicted by us against each other. So I'm going to keep working to alleviate suffering. I know I can never get to zero. It's asymptotic. We can decline the amount of total suffering, but we're never going to get rid of all of it. Just have to accept that fact. Buddha says, no, we're so spoiled. We follow the belief of a privileged prince who couldn't handle that there was any suffering on earth at all, and that's why we all have to die so that we don't suffer at all. Well, I'm accepting of the existence of suffering. And there's a lot more to life than just getting rid of suffering. That's not the only value function for life. So I'm not going to stop living just because there's some suffering in my life or others. I'm going to work to alleviate suffering. So that's been the conversation going on and on for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And it was funny because the Taoists in China were the ones inventing the moldboard plow that made it much easier to till hard-packed clay soils so that more land came under cultivation, and inventing the seed drill so you only had to save a fraction of the seed for next year instead of just throwing it on the ground, broadcasting it. And it was the Taoists who were creating the first hang glider 2,000 years ago. The Taoist alchemists were creating the first strike-anywhere matches and phosphorescent paint, which is the green lantern of the alchemists. When Europeans heard about it, they're like, that's some weird magic cold fire. No, it's just phosphorescent paint. The Taoists were the ones who were figuring out metallurgy and how to use a heavy weight dropping down from a tall bamboo tower. You just on a teeter-totter. Two guys on a teeter-totter. They slowly ratchet up this weight on a cable made of bamboo fibers, and then they drop it down. And they were able to pulverize and rinse holes in the ground that were thousands of feet deep, all the way down to brine deposits. This is way in western China. And western China, it's far from the ocean, where they normally got salt. So they're able to pump this brine out of the ground and evaporate it to get salt without having to import from the seaside. It's a lot cheaper. And the brine deposits would also contain natural gas. And so the Taoists actually had bamboo pipes to local towns, pumping natural gas into people's houses for their fires. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And they would use the natural gas burners to burn pans of brine. They got the brine and the natural gas coming out. They burn the natural gas to evaporate the brine. They got salt. And the Taoist government, we're talking about like Emperor Wen 2,000 years ago, the Taoist government was financing that whole operation as a benefit to the people there, and they were selling the salt at a profit. That's very practical. So that's what Taoists were doing. That's what Taoists were up to for many, many, many years. And then the Tibetan Buddhists arrived in China, and they became bureaucrats. And when they became bureaucrats, it was weird because there's at the time there was lots of people using silver coins for trade. There's copper coins for poor people to buy regular daily items. There's gold coins for kings, but most of the trade was happening in silver. And so the Buddhist bureaucrats, they said, we're going to try and make things easier for people. You can leave all your silver in a safety deposit box. You come in with 37 silver coins, put it in the box, we write you a receipt. You have 37 silver coins in our safety deposit box. There you go. There's your receipt. And now you can come back later and get your silver when you need it. Okay, that's cool. Funny thing happened. People started taking that receipt that said 37 silver coins, and they'd go to a merchant. And they'd say, hey, merchant, I don't want to have to go back to my own safety deposit box to withdraw the silver coins, just to bring you the silver coins. How about you just take this receipt for 37 silver coins? And then you can go to my deposit box and you can grab the silver. And the merchant says, yeah, that's easier for both of us. I'll take it. I'll take the 37 silver coin receipt. Here's your stuff. And so they're trading using these receipts for a safety deposit box full of silver. And that got inconvenient because each receipt had a different amount on it. So they decided to standardize it. They said, you want to put 37 silver coins in your safety deposit box? Okay, here's 3 receipts that each say 10 silver coins. And then here's 7 receipts that each say 1 silver coin. So now I got 3 10s and 7 1s. Now you can split them up easier and handle them in a regular fashion if we standardized it. So now they're walking around with these receipt papers that say 10 silver coins and 1 silver coin, and they go to the merchant, and the merchant's like, I'm going to need 12 silver coins. Okay, here's a 10 and 2 1s. That's paper money. That's paper money. And so everyone's using these paper money. And the Buddhist bureaucrats, they noticed everyone's using the paper money. So the silver actually never gets withdrawn anymore. No one's taking the silver out of their safety deposit boxes. So if we're short on cash, if we're running low on tax money, no one's going to notice. We'll put it back. We'll put it back. So they start taking from the silver safety deposit boxes, and then they take those silver coins to the merchants. And here's some silver coins. They get the stuff. And then the merchant doesn't want to handle silver coins. He's using paper money. So he takes those silver coins and he puts them back in the safety deposit box to get more paper. Bingo. Oh my gosh, this is like an infinite money glitch. We just take the silver coins out of the safety deposit box, give the silver coins to a merchant, we get stuff from the merchant, and then the merchant takes the silver coins and gives them back to us for a slip of paper. We just keep doing this. This works great. This is amazing. I love this. This is a great way to run a government. Yeah. Oh. And so they're taking all the silver out, giving it to the merchants. The merchants put the silver back, and they get paper. That's creating a lot more paper. Supply and demand, that makes their currency less valuable per unit of currency. And so the merchants who are trading with foreigners, they're like going down South China Sea into the Indian Ocean, trading with the spice trade and all that stuff. They start giving silver to foreigners in return for stuff. So the silver coins themselves are actually leaving the country. So there's less and less silver coins coming back into the safety deposit box. And eventually, the Buddhist bureaucrats realized we don't have silver coins anymore. How are we going to keep grabbing the silver coins out of the safety deposit box to give to the merchants to get stuff and have the merchants put it back because they gave it to people in another country? Oh, I know. We'll just write those receipts. We'll just write 10 on a piece of paper. Now we get to take this piece of paper that says there's silver. We'll just give the paper to a merchant, and he'll give us stuff, and he's just circulating that paper. Hyperinflation. This was during the Ming Empire. So they started printing a lot of paper money without anything behind it. And with all this paper money getting printed, the value of each dollar, the paper currency, they had their own name for it, the value dropped. And once people realized that paper money wasn't worth anything anymore, they stopped accepting it. Someone comes in, they're like, I'll give you 3,000 silver coins. And they're like, that's not 3,000 silver coins. That's the number 3,000 on a piece of paper. Give me actual silver coins. But no one could find silver coins anymore because they all went to some other country. So if you had actual silver, it was incredibly precious. And so when the paper currency collapsed, there was this huge demand in China for silver coins, physical silver. That's what's going on right now, globally. That's where we're at right now. And so the Chinese merchants are trying to trade in Southeast Asia and India. They're like, give us silver. We'll give you porcelain. We'll give you jade. We'll give you silk. We'll give you tea. Just give us real physical silver. And so there's this huge flood of Chinese goods into the Indian Ocean. And there's a lot of Arab traders, sailors, who are going back and forth with the winds. And they're bringing all this stuff, porcelain, jade, silk, tea, spices. They're bringing all this stuff further and further in return for silver. And so the silver is sucking toward China, and all these Chinese goods are moving out west. And that's when Europeans noticed. People in Europe are like, what's all this really cool stuff? We can get all this awesome new stuff if we just give these Arab merchants silver. And there was one group of people in particular that had a lot of silver in Europe because they had silver mines in their countries. That was Spain and Portugal. There were silver mines there. And so there was this prince named Zhao. Later he was known as Zhao the Navigator. And he's saying, hey, we have silver right here. And we're giving the silver to these middlemen who then trade to traders to bring back this stuff from China. If we could just take our own silver straight to China, then we'd make a much larger profit margin selling all this Chinese stuff to the rest of Europe. And that was why Zhao financed the expeditions to go down West Africa and try to find a route to China. That was what motivated and financed the European age of exploration, was trying to take European silver straight to China to bring Chinese goods back and sell them to Europeans. And so when Cristobal and his brother, the Columbi, when they set out and found the New World, and they were not the first, the things that they found that they brought back to Spain that were most precious was silver. They wanted silver and gold. So in Mexico, they found silver. They're hauling silver back. And in particular, there was this one mountain in South America that was like a holy site to the natives. It was called Potosi. And way up 9,000 feet on this mountain, there was just a slab of pure silver. It's just a giant raw silver bed. And it was huge. And so they started enslaving more than 100,000 locals in a continuous supply line, digging down into this mountain to just grab all the silver. And so for 300 plus years, that mine in Potosi was producing 80% of the world's silver. Back then they used to say more wealth than Potosi, to like more wealth than God kind of stuff. That was their saying. Potosi was the real treasure. And what's crazy is they were mining this stuff. They were mining the silver. It was 80% of the world's silver production. And then half of that production, minted in pesos, was sent straight to China for Chinese goods. There was so much of that silver flowing into China that government accounting in China at the time was done in pesos. That's what the Buddhists brought to China.